The temple was a sanctuary of silence, its stone walls etched with the stories of the gods. Vines twisted and coiled around columns, their lush greenery a stark contrast to the pale moonlight filtering through the high, narrow windows. Beneath the cold gaze of the stars, the Sacred Virgin Priestess, Elara, knelt before the altar. The weight of her duty was a constant presence, an invisible shackle that bound her to the gods. She had known no life beyond the temple, no touch of the outside world, and certainly no desire. Her existence had been shaped by devotion. From childhood, she had been raised for one purpose: to serve the gods and protect their sanctity. Elara's days were marked by rituals, prayers, and an unwavering commitment to the divine. Yet, despite her purity, there was an emptiness she could not fill. She was untouched, her body and soul reserved for the gods alone. The other priestesses spoke of love and desire in hushed voices, their words laced with forbidden curiosity. But Elara had never questioned her path. Till now. The night had begun like any other, a moonless sky stretching endlessly above the temple. But tonight the winds whispered of something different. Elara felt it in her bones as she prepared for her evening meditation, a pull, like an unseen force beckoning her towards the temple's entrance. She could not explain it, but it was undeniable. Something or someone was about to change her life. As she made her way toward the temple's threshold, she found him. The stranger was unlike any being she had ever encountered. His dark hair and tan skin were a stark contrast to the marble purity of the temple. His clothes were torn and weathered, his face marked by the harshness of travel. He was human, she could tell by the faint traces of mortality in his features. But his eyes, those deep, stormy eyes, held something Elara had never seen before: desire. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice a mixture of authority and curiosity. The man, weary from his journey, smiled faintly. "I am a wanderer. I've heard of the temple and its sacred priestesses. I seek solace. And perhaps more." Elara's heart fluttered, though she tried to suppress the strange sensation. She had been taught that desire was a sin, an imperfection to be purged. Yet in his gaze she felt something unfamiliar stir within her, something that both terrified and intrigued her. "You should leave," Elara said, her voice shaking slightly. "This is a sacred place." The man stepped forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "Is it truly sacred, or is it a prison?" His voice was soft but insistent, like a caress against her heart. Her breath hitched. "Leave now, or I will have you removed." But the man only smiled again, his expression warm and inviting. "You don't want me to leave, do you?" Elara's thoughts were a storm, crashing against one another. She had been taught to resist such temptations, but the pull of this man, this stranger, was irresistible. She wanted to understand him, to know what it was that had awakened something deep within her that she could not name. She had been alone in the temple for so long, untouched by the world beyond its walls. She had never felt the warmth of another's touch, the heat of passion or desire. But now, as she stood before this man, she realized just how much she had been missing. Her gaze softened, and she stepped closer to him. "What is it that you seek?" "Only your company," the man replied, his voice a whisper. "But I see that you are more than a priestess. You are a woman, one who is bound by duty, yes, but still human. You have desires. And they are not wrong." Elara's heart raced. She had never allowed herself to think such thoughts, let alone speak them aloud. But something about this man's presence made her feel as though she could finally breathe. For the first time in her life she felt alive. Days passed, and the man, whose name was Kael, stayed at the temple. He did not speak of his past or the reason for his travels. Instead, he spent his days in silence, respecting Elara's duties and her rituals. But each time they crossed paths, something grew between them, an invisible thread that pulled them closer, wrapping them in a dance of unspoken desires. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow over the temple's marble pillars, Elara could no longer resist. She found him in the courtyard, staring out at the distant mountains. The air was thick with tension, and the sky above seemed to pulse with anticipation. "I cannot stop thinking about you," she confessed, her voice trembling as she stepped closer. "I have never felt this longing. What is it? Why do you make me feel this way?" Kael turned to face her, his eyes filled with understanding. "It's called desire, Elara. It's a part of you, a part of every human. And it's not something to fear. It's what makes you whole." He took a step toward her, his fingers brushing against her skin. She shuddered, not from fear, but from the intensity of the sensation. For the first time she allowed herself to feel. The moment their lips met, it was as if the world fell away. Elara had always been taught that the body was a vessel for the divine, something to be revered and untouched. But as Kael's arms encircled her, she realized that desire was not a sin, it was a gift. In his embrace, Elara found herself. She found a new part of herself she had never known existed. She was no longer just a priestess. She was a woman who could love, who could long for another. The next morning, as the sun rose over the temple, Elara stood at the altar once more. But this time she was not alone. Kael stood by her side, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I will not leave," Kael whispered. "I've awakened something in you, Elara. And you've awakened something in me." Elara smiled, her heart full for the first time in years. She was no longer bound by duty. She was free to love, to feel, and to live. And for the first time, she understood that desire was not a curse, it was a blessing. As the sun rose over the temple, casting a soft golden light over the stone columns, Elara stood before the altar once again. But this time, her heart was no longer bound by the cold chains of duty. Kael stood by her side, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, a silent promise between them. She had chosen to embrace the feelings that had once terrified her. No longer just the Sacred Virgin Priestess, Elara was now a woman, one who had learned to love, to feel, and to desire. Kael had shown her that there was more to life than ritual and devotion to the gods. The connection they shared was more than mere passion. It was a deep, unspoken understanding of each other's hearts. "I will not leave," Kael whispered, his voice filled with tenderness. "We can build a life together, free of the chains that held you." Elara looked up at him, her eyes filled with newfound certainty. "I choose this life," she replied, her voice steady and strong. "I choose you." As the light of the new day bathed them both in warmth, they walked away from the altar together, ready to face a future shaped by love and desire, no longer confined by the temple's walls.